Welcome to the Stay Paid podcast, where we help agents and entrepreneurs master the latest business trends to unlock growth and create a life of freedom. Brought to you by Reminder Media.
Welcome to Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike, and along with Luke Acree, president of Reminder Media,
I'm here.
we also have on the show today, we have Stephen Acree, returning founder of Acree Brothers Realty Team, the leading real estate team in Lynchburg, Virginia, and his director of sales, Cody Smith, joining us from Lynchburg, Virginia. And then Garrett Maroon, founder and team leader of the Maroon Group.
It's kind of what it is.
The moon.
Yeah.
I just realized where we're
The
doing
Moon Group.
the intro. Josh and I's feet are like right next to each other, almost like we're playing footsie here
though.
on screen. I'm just like,
cute.
I'm gonna have to keep my leg
Cody and
down.
Steven.
Because I live it, we're doing the same thing.
Cody and
You guys
Steven.
need to do the same
Cody's
thing.
like
Yeah,
hugging
Steven.
Steven. Yeah. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a nice, loving podcast today. I love it.
Garrett's returning on a podcast third time. Is this their second or third appearance?
Third?
Third, I think it's the
third.
third. His team ranks in the top 1% of his area for 3 or 6 years in a row now, and fellow Dolphins fan. So we have a personal bond.
Go Dolphins.
Used to be a
Heck
bond
yes.
of misery, but lately
Yes.
it's been a bond of.
It's still misery.
hope.
When have you guys won something? I mean, you guys are
We
like.
still haven't won a playoff game in 23 years.
That's
but
what I was gonna say.
We're getting
But
closer.
we're making it.
Speaking of football, did anybody watch the Tom Brady roast?
I didn't. I seen some clips from it.
Oh my gosh, man! I mean, it's really crude, so disclaimer there. But there's some hilarious stuff. I mean, it was unbelievable. The roasting, especially Tom's comment on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Never won anything in their life.
Roasted them. Say catching strays.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly.
It's the only time I like Tom Brady is when he's making fun of the Bills.
It was hilarious. But anyways,
All right, let's get on to today's headline of the week. All right, so this comes from nowbam.com. This was an article written by the broke agent, Eric Simon, who's been on the show as well. He says why every agent needs to pay attention to Alex Hormozi's content shift. So the basic of this article is, if you guys have been following Alex Hormozi, there's been a major shift going on in social media right now. For years, the highly edited talking head videos popularized by Alex Hormozi have been the obvious wave on social media. You guys see him everywhere. Short form content with attention grabbing hooks, animated captions, zooming, cropping, transitions, music, sound effects. Ethan, do you have an example for anyone listening that isn't familiar with Alex Hormozi? Why don't you play one of his clips so that we can give everyone an example?
Sure
what those
can.
are. Yeah.
Let's play that right here.
if our internet loads,
Just click the video.
People like to say, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, it shouldn't matter for 5 seconds. I like to take that a bit further and say, if it's not going to matter in 500 million years, it shouldn't matter for 5 seconds. Now, some people take that and think, wow, then you don't think anything has meaning. And the answer is yes. That is the point. Do you know who your great-great-grandparent is? You probably don't even know their name. And we have this, because we're so self-centered, think that everyone around us is going to sing our praises and hang our pictures on the wall and just sing Kumbaya to us every single night after we're gone. And the real is, why do we give a if we claim to not care about what other people think? Why would we care what they do and talk about us after we're dead? A lot of people like to say,
So there you go. They kind of get the idea.
that's the clip. He's so freaking good, though. I'm kind of like, oh man, that
good.
does work. That content does
It
work. What are
still
you
works.
talking about, Alex? But you know what's funny is that I felt this.
Yeah.
This, months ago, actually back when I spoke at 8%, so that had to be almost like 8 months ago, because I remember Bradley on the stage talking about social media content and doing different clips and stuff like that. And I just felt overwhelming because we were trying to do this type of content and weren't getting a ton of traction. And we actually have some bit of a following and listeners. And we still were having struggle tying it to actually working.
Yeah.
And all these solopreneur agents trying to
compete?
do these talking head videos where you're basically the guru, and every time you get on social, you're seeing another person who's basically claiming they have the secret to success. I loved in the article how he said you would see some basically asshole get on and tell you these are the 3 steps, these are the ice baths.
Get in the ice
Get in the ice bath 3 times.
Yeah.
So the point being is like, I think everybody and their mom now is trying to become an influencer. Everybody now is doing these talking head videos, which marketers ruin everything. So now we're going to head away from it and go back to authentic
So this
content.
is kind of the idea of the article here, just so we get your takes on it as well, Garrett, Stephen, and Cody. But he said at the end of April, he actually posted this on IG stating, I've made 35,000 pieces of content over the last 3 years, and I'm making changes. No more wide or general content. I'm only making business stuff for business owners. No more ADD high production. It'll be light edits and mostly uncut, and more long form. So if you're a business owner, my last 5 YouTube videos is now the new OG style, just value. And so if you've been on Alex's YouTube, and you can go check it out, he's posting these videos like 45 minutes long of him standing there with an easel and not a whiteboard, but like a clipboard or a flip board or whatever.
Yep.
Just teaching.
Yep.
So completely different kind of style.
What do you think about that, Stephen, in terms of like you as a consumer of content and the type of content that you consume, but this whole idea of going back
is like I am the consumer, for that content. And we've been talking for years actually on this, where we're watching, like if I watch Ryan Pineda right now, we were talking about it this morning, and he's in a shift. You should have seen his video the other day where he's not getting this attraction of leads anymore because we're at a point in history where we have the lowest amount of cash reserves in consumers' bank accounts. And so the shift is really going, like we want actual information that's going to get direct results, right, to bring in and generate business. And the shift is people aren't just clicking on the ads and going directly to buy something from you anymore. It's going to take a lot more sales. And the truth is the long form content really, like we're looking at the practicality of it. Does it generate business?
Yeah, there's no fluff, like or at least the feel wise, it doesn't feel like there's fluff. Where with the all the graphics popping up and all the fast clickbait stuff, it feels more fluff. And when you had an excess of cash, like you're saying, you would buy. But now that you don't have an excess of cash, you're like, I don't care. I don't want to be sold.
Like 2021, the market was so good that we were all engaging with these influencers that really didn't have any practical advice to generate us business. We were just generating business because the market was so good. It was so hot, right? And so, but I would say like the ones we follow, like Pat David, right? The one I've been telling you I really like, it's actual information that's going to generate business for you. Yeah, and I think that's really the shift with the long, form content rather than short term is like what's actually going to get us money in the bank account, and that's what I follow as the consumer.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I don't know, Garrett. Like you have been producing some content on the Faithful Agent, and you're doing social as well as everybody is trying to do. But like when you think about this article from Alex Hormozi, he's basically stating, hey, I'm no longer going to edit things and make it all clipped up and make it all sexy or whatever you want to call it, clickbait. I'm just going to deliver the raw. What's your take and what you're seeing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in no way a social expert, right, by any means, but I thought the article was fascinating. And I agree wholeheartedly with the concept of authenticity. I've been going around and I know we're going to talk about, but the book that I'm writing, the talk I've been giving about the scoreboard, I've been saying your job as a real estate agent is not to do everything and be all things to all people. Your job is to figure out who you are, how you were made, and just be excellent at that. And that's the job of a business owner. That's the job of an entrepreneur. That's the job of a real estate agent. So I love the concept. I love the idea of saying, just be super real. I've been talking a lot more on our podcast, guys. It's been a really hard market for us, right? It's been challenging. I share openly. I had my first anxiety attack ever a couple of months ago, right?
Wow.
And it's just been hard, right? Things are difficult right now. So just the thought of going back to this authenticity, I think is super valuable in a way that people can actually engage. 91% of millennials, by the way, say they would choose a referral over anything else. So the people that grew up on technology, they don't trust technology like Stephen was talking about. They're not just going to go, oh, this is amazing, I'll just go buy this thing. That's actually the older generation. The younger generation is saying, I want to get to know you, right? I want to feel like I belong with you before I believe in you. And then when I believe in you, then I'm going to buy from you. And so I do love the concept of authenticity, being real, those things.
Especially when you see like where AI's headed. Maybe we tag it, Ethan, in this Stay Paid show notes, but Reid Hoffman basically created a AI bot of himself.
Yeah, he had his AI read every book he's read, listen to every podcast he made, every video he's done, and then he interviews himself.
He interviews himself So he's created an AI bot of him, and he interviews himself, and it is scary how real it is, and then also how smart the AI bot is. And he asked him the question, summarize my book. He had written this book about scalability and stuff. Summarize it in one sentence and do it as you're basically a genius. Do it as you're a 5-year-old would understand it, and do it as Jerry Seinfeld would summarize it. And the AI bot did it the 3 different ways. And Reid Hoffman's it looks like Reid Hoffman. Obviously, it's an AI generative whatever you call it. It's him in AI form, and it summarizes it, and it is pretty freaking crazy. And so getting to your point of people are not going to trust tech nearly as much. It's the authenticity. It's the relationship. I'm curious, though, because I don't want to get off so you had an anxiety attack. Was that triggered by the market and the pressure of the market? Was it triggered by everything you're doing with Faithful Agent? What triggered that?
Yeah, good question. So my first one was in December of 2023. I was just driving, taking my family to Williamsburg, where we live, and just, I don't know what it was. I'd never had something like that. And it was bad for 10 minutes, and then it was kind of recovering. And then in January, it was a much worse one. I share, it was the first time ever that I had to text some of my buddies, dude, I'm struggling, man. I need help. Had never done that before. And so, yeah, it's the right question. What caused it? I mean, honestly, for me, so I started to look into scripture, Psalm 131, King David, right? King David, most people know who that is, whether you're a Christian or not, who wrote the Psalm, says that my heart is not proud, my eyes are not haughty, meaning I don't look down on people. But then he says, I do not desire things too great or too marvelous for me, but I've calmed and quieted my soul. And so as I started to pray through that, to process through that, honestly, brother, I think it was so much of me just desiring these big, massive things without asking the Lord, trying to just become whatever it is that I was supposed to become, or what I thought I was supposed to become, set big, massive goals, do all of these things, right? I had 9 different businesses going on, all of this stuff, thinking I could do all of these things amazingly well, pushing myself to the limits constantly, never really being satisfied, never allowing myself to breathe and even just get clarity and focus, right? I think it was a combination of all of those things. Plus, on top of that, honestly, as entrepreneurs, and at least for me, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, right? So often I was showing up to my friend groups, and I was always the guy that's like, yeah, things are great, man. How about you? How are you? Right? Just never was letting, I'm not saying you need to let everybody in. That'd be not a good idea, right? But never letting anybody in to just say, bro, this is hard, man. I am struggling. Things are difficult, whatever it is. And so I think it was going for all this stuff and then just keeping it inside and not letting anybody in.
It's such a good point. Of I wondered if you were going to say that, because I knew you were building Faithful Agent, right? So you're putting yourself out there, and we'll talk about that in a second, what Faithful Agent is and that conference and everything you're doing there. And then you're writing a book and you're doing all this stuff. And it's interesting that when you put yourself out there, you're the pressure that mounts on you. And it mounts purely because when you're putting yourself out there, at least this has been my feeling on it, it's when you put yourself out there, you want people to respond in a good way, because boil it down to just making sales calls. You're so nervous to make the sales call because you want the person on the other end of the phone not to reject you and actually listen to your sales pitch. And then when they reject you, right, that you hate that rejection. So most agents or most businesses don't make those sales calls. And the same almost applies for when you put yourself out there content wise, when you put yourself out there creating something like the Faithful Agent, all of a sudden you've opened yourself up to criticism. And I heard it said, I think it was Layla Hormozi who talked about, oftentimes we'll read YouTube video comments, or we'll listen to people's comments about the good things and give so much credence to it and be like, oh man, I feel so good that person liked my content. And she said, as much credence as you give to that, you're giving as much credence to the negative ones as well. And you shouldn't care either way. You should be good with yourself. You should be good with the reason why you're doing it. And if you're good with yourself and the reason why you're doing it, then it doesn't matter if people liked it or didn't like it, because you're doing, and that gives you power. And when you have that power, and I think Tucker Carlson, I had shared this on a 10X, or when we came back from 10X, Tucker Carlson talked about you need to speak the truth 100% of the time. Because when you speak the truth 100% of the time, nobody has anything on you. You're not keeping any lies. You're not manipulating anything. You have 100% power, and you radiate that power because you're confident in who you are. I don't care what you think about me. This is what I'm doing, and what you think is what you think, but this is my truth. And your truth doesn't mean you don't evolve and learn as you go. It just means you're not lying, you're not manipulating, you're not trying to be somebody you're not. And oftentimes, whether it's putting out a podcast, putting out a piece of content, doing a conference, writing a book, trying to make a sales call, you're trying to frame yourself as an actor that you're not truly that actor. And I was coaching one of our sales callers last night, telling them, hey, you trying to pitch this lady. He was trying to pitch this lady and lost her. And I said, you lost her because you weren't actually being real with her. She was sharing with you that it's been a hard market and that she's stressed out, and you just pitched a product feature instead of literally going, and talking to her and saying, hey, you're a real human being. I can actually tell you what I believe and what I think, and whether you buy from me or not doesn't matter, because this is the value that I bring to the table. And when you pitch from that confidence, that actually was what makes people buy and draws you in.
That's why long form content is the best, right? Is because you can't fake long-term content. And
that's a great point.
Like, we see the short term, it's just like, or the short form content, it's like, the other person could have overproduced that. They could have cut and, clipped kind of thing. And so we assume they don't know what they're talking about, versus the long form content. If you know something, you can speak on it for hours, right? And there's no trouble doing so. And so when you watch long form, you gain that trust in the individual. I think that's why it's the best.
Which that's one of my favorite videos are actually the food content where they do it in their cars, because it just seems really real. It's exactly what they think. They're in their own. It's not like they're getting set up for it,
right?
So the authenticity of it just kind of pulls through. So I was going to ask you guys what you thought. What's your favorite video you can think of? Josh, do you have one that you can think of, your favorite video right now?
My favorite video. Do you guys remember Shoes from the? No.
I thought you were going to say Stay Paid. Come on, man. No.
Oh my God.
Because I was just thinking through my favorite video form of content is that real in your car, trying the food and rating it, giving that immediate thing. So
think about the shift we just made here with Stay Paid, our podcast. We've done, how many episodes, Ethan, have we done of Stay Paid?
We're around 560 now.
So 560 episodes, and we've made this major shift. And the major shift came out of this concept of, hey, interviewing people is okay, but I prefer to listen to Patrick Bet-David, like you're saying, Steve, or if you look at the really popular shows, Impulsive, Nelk Boys, all these shows, they are a bunch of people sitting around having a conversation, which just translates way more authentically, because it's really hard. I mean, I can just tell just with us all together talking, it's really hard to be scripted in this type of environment, because we're just all talking. Mm-hmm. And so it's you can't even get if you were scripted, you can't even get it out, because we're just all talking, and that makes it more authentic and makes it more real, which makes people connect with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I find myself, I've always been more likely to consume longer form content, and have never really been a huge fan of the short term. I get it from a kind of, it pleases my ADD a little bit from that perspective. But the good news for agents that are listening is, hey, you don't need a media team to compete in this content space. You don't need fancy editing. You don't need fancy sets. Like Alex's videos that he's doing now, he's standing up on a stage in his building. In his building, yeah. There's no audience. He's just talking. He's covered everything, with black curtains and stuff like that, and it's just.
You mentioned the articles on BAM, and one thing, I was on their walkthrough podcast the other day, and one thing the broke agent Eric was talking about is that green screen videos are a great way to do this type of content, because a green screen video, if you haven't done it before, it's basically taking an article or something and putting it in your backdrop, and then you get on with no editing and you just talk about what that article is. And so it's a great, BAM is seeing that their most traction on all the content they're putting out there on Instagram right now is from green screen videos. So that could be because Instagram's pushing that feature a little bit, but more importantly, I think it plays into it's more authentic. I also don't want to miss the point that I think is critical, which ties into our discussion last week, which is Alex Hormozi, if you watch his talk on this shift, so this is a post he put out, but he has a whole talk on why he did this. And he talks about his theory was that if I make the net really wide at the top of the funnel and just reach people with multitudes of content. So he was putting out business content, relationship content, content on fitness, working out, right? He said, if I do a really wide net, then I'll catch people who like working out into that net. I'll catch people who like relationships into that net. And those people will then translate to my other forms of content, which will eventually lead me to more deals with acquisition.com. He said, in theory, it sounds really good. In practicality, it didn't play out to be true. He did 35,000 pieces of content, spent $4 million. And he said the more relationship content or health content he put out, he didn't get more things for his business, acquisition.com. He just got people wanting more relationship content, and it spread him too thin. And that, last week when we talked about, hey, what do you do in this shifting market with NAR and everything that's going on? It's like, get back to the fundamentals, back to the basics. It's like, cut out the fluff. What makes you money? Drive sales. And I just don't want people to miss the point of, yes, it's about raw, authentic content. But Alex Hormozi's main point was going, hey, I'm not going to sit here and try to produce a bunch of clickbait, high value stuff that doesn't actually serve me or the business. I'm just going to put out stuff that I enjoy talking about, that's to my actual audience.
Business owners.
And I'm going to be very raw and transparent. And even if it doesn't get as many views, it doesn't matter because it gets the right views.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he tried it and it didn't work, and he pivoted. So It's like, also just do the work. Like, he did it, it didn't work. He got the research and then pivoted and went back to something else.
100%.
Well, speaking of the market and everything going on in business, Garrett, how's business going with you? What do you got going on? Do a little check in there.
Yeah, man. So it's been a hard market, right? I think for everybody, we're running into probably what most people are is our friends. We're 100% referral if you've heard us before. So our friends are saying, well, why would I sell my home and upgrade it to an 8% rate? And you're like, that's a good point. You probably shouldn't, right? And so we've been talking a lot about, like, this is a season for us to survive, not thrive. And I know that sounds, well, we always want to thrive constantly. And I get that. But this is a season for a lot of agents where it's like, look, you just got to make it through the market. It'll come back. And when it comes back and you've been the one serving people, you're going to come back in a huge way, because unfortunately, a lot of agents are just going to give up. They're going to get out, the settlement, they're going to get out because business is hard. They're going to get out for a bunch of reasons. And then you've taken yourself out of the equation, right? You can succeed in anything if the runway is long enough. So as long as we have a long enough runway, we're going to get to the end where we can actually take off. So, we're still doing okay, right? Thankfully, we're paying the bills. We're still living. My family's taken care of. So I'm super thankful for that, but it's definitely not as amazing as it has been in the past, right? And I think that's okay. We're trying to look at it as, let's continue to do the right activities. Let's keep serving our people well. But also personally, this is a season for me personally to just read and learn and take advantage of time with my kiddos, and right, because it's not a crazy market like it has been the past few years. So in a lot of ways, it's certainly been different, man. But I think if I look at it with the appropriate perspective, it's still really good. It's when I get caught up in that my identity is based on how many deals that I do. That's when I start to struggle with that, honestly. But, I think I heard a pastor say once, the people want the real you, not the ideal you, which I think plays into what we've been talking about, right? But the real me, not the ideal me. And the real me is, we've got a client event tonight as we record this. The real me is, hey guys, it's great to have you here. And they're going to say, hey, how's business? Man, it's been tough. That's the real me.
You're like, right? It sucks because you're not giving me referrals.
Right, exactly. Seriously, why are you not trading your 2% for an 8%? What a terrible decision.
Date the rate. That's what they say. No, I'm just
kidding. What are you doing?
Tell me about this program. Yeah.
What is the client event? So we know, like, what are the details of the client event?
Yeah, man. So tonight's just a brewery event. So my agent, come from 4 to 7. We'll buy you a beer. We'll hang out. We'll catch up. We try to reach.
How many people do you think you'll have show up to that?
Probably 80 to 100.
Man. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll stop by at some point, just say hi. We've got an ice cream event next month.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So we're still serving. What we did during COVID is the same idea here, honestly. So during COVID, when people were scared about money or whatever, those things, we said, well, what if we just started to do something every single month? Because what do they not have right now? They're not having fun. There's a lot of fear, right? They're not thinking about these things. Maybe they don't want to spend the extra money to go get ice cream, whatever it is. And so how can we just intentionally say, we love you genuinely. We want to care for you. So we're just come. It's so easy. 4 to 7, come hang out, grab a beer if you want one, right? Ice cream, come. We're going to have ice cream. If you guys want to come, we'd love to serve you. We'd love to see you. It's those things, right? Again, I think that thankfully, because in the relational model, you're not looking immediate return. It is, I'm investing in these people's lives. And so when the market comes back around, which it will come back around, there's a real need out there for people who want to move. When the market comes back around, who are they going to go to? The guy who's been serving them the whole time and loving on them the whole time, right? I think that's how this grows. And so if we can put the market in its proper perspective of, man, this is not going to be as good as 2021, right? That's okay. Survive it, get through it. And then when it comes back, you're going to be fine. I think most people make most of their money in certain years, right? Not every single year back to back to back. We tend to have really good years and okay years and really good years and okay years. So we're trying to keep it in the proper perspective for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious because it's interesting. Like my thought process goes to, there's going to be up years, down years. There's going to be those things. A lot of times, though, it's dictated by activity. So you have to make that always personal choice is my philosophy is like right now for Reminder Media to close a deal, we're definitely having to work at least 3 to 4 times harder to close the deal. So we have a choice. If our average dials a day were 100, well, are we willing to make 400 dials a day in order to get that deal? Now, a lot of people weigh that scale and go, no, I'm not willing to do that because I'm satisfied with making this amount of money for this time period until it comes back. And then others are, hey, no, I'm going to make the 400 dials a day. My perspective is like, I feel like you can never lit up on the philosophy of you have to push to grow. Because I have found that as soon as you allow your foot off the gas, what happens is comfort seeps in. And I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts on this. It's like comfort is the enemy of progress. And comfort is the thing that woos you into basically mediocrity. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So I actually agree with you of going, Garrett, of like, hey, this season is what it is. You can't let it paralyze you. No doubt it is harder for almost every business owner that I've talked to out there. But at the same time, for me, my gut goes, nah, man, you also got to wake up and go, look, you own who you are. And there's going to be winners in every market. Winners win. And so you just have to ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And then that comes back to, what do you think is the squeeze? Why are you doing, or what the juice that you're going for? Why would you squeeze this? And that goes back to your internal reasons. I'm curious, Stephen or Cody, your take on that philosophy, like where you fit into that.
I mean, obviously, especially for a business owner or a team, right, where you're over other people that want to hit a certain level of income, right, it's all going to be trackable. And as we track it, like, just as an example, you started coaching Noah, last week, and, he didn't have any transactions the previous month. And then as soon as you start coaching him and going through the numbers and the activity of phone calls, right, number of appointments set, number of appointments that he actually went on, like he's already got 2 listings coming up. He just put our first buyer contract for the month, right? So it's just an action-based market because we went from 6 million sales to 4 million, right? So there's less for everyone. And so then it just means more activity because you're going to need more relationships, right, in order to get the number that you want. But it does come down to, what do you actually want, right? So as I'm looking at the team, it's like, what do you want as the team member? This is not about what I want, but what do you want? And then this is the level of activity in this current climate that it's going to take to get there. I mean, I think that's 100% spot on.
And it's always a balance too, right? Because the biggest thing we preach against is commission breath,
right?
Which is like the want of something, want of money, right? And that's the reason the transaction. But then it comes back to authenticity and caring about what the client wants the most. So you have that good balance of like, it's not all about the money, right? It is about the client. But at the same time, I've got a goal I got to get at.
Right. So you have to widen your pool of relationships, right, is really the key. Because it's not about forcing someone into a transaction. That's what everyone goes to. They go, I got this number of people in my database. I did this in 2021 with that number of people in my database. And so then they go, well, I need to take more action on my database. Well, no, you need to grow your database and take more action on more people.
That's a good point.
Their motivation. And then once you get that, there's going to be a lot of buyers and sellers still in this market that have a need, to buy and sell.
I got a question for you guys on that, right? And you think about your database and you think about the client event, the brewery event you're doing. And I know, Steven, you have an event coming up like a barbecue in the park or something like that. Will you guys ask the people that attend those events for a referral at the event?
We ask them for reviews, and generally that turns into referral conversations. If it organically does, we go for it. If it does, we don't want the serving, giving to turn into, especially at these events, to turn to asking for a referral. But we do teach, like we got a new agent coming on, Katie, and we're going to teach her this week how to intentionally ask for that referral. So we are specific in our phone calls about saying, hey, we want to work with people like you. Yeah. You're the person I want to work with. And I just joined this awesome team. Who do you know that's looking to buy and sell? So very intentional on that side. The events, only if it organically turns to that, off the reviews. Our main goal is the reviews so that we can generate other, leads through Google.
What about you, Garrett? Do you ask at your client events or no?
No, we don't. I think the same thing with Steven. Like the whole point is say, hey, now I'll get up and say, because of your support, because of your referrals, we just want to say thank you. This is about you. It's never been about us. So we'll do that. My kiddos will come, my wife and my 4 kids will come, right? Like it is this family and they get to see, and I'll say, hey, it's because of you guys that I get to provide for my kids.
You're using your kids. I love it, dude.
No problem.
The emotional close. No.
Emotional manipulation is highly effective.
What's interesting is, do you guys have any scripting or line you use to get the conversation to turn to talking about real estate, which will allow you to ask for a referral? Because that is the struggle, I think, for agents is like, how do I take the convo from life to business in a seamless way? If you don't have anything, that's fine too. I was just curious.
It's just about your stories, which obviously come from experience. But one of my lines is, it's surprising to me, like how much equity people have in their homes and they don't even know about it. Right. So like, I'm just talking about real estate, and then that might organically, have them ask, what kind of equity do I have in my house? But it's surprising to me how many, how much equity we have in our days market. Like the market went up like 11% last year. And people don't even know it, right? And that's a great
line,
a conversation.
And for me, I guess the one-liner, it all depends on like what situation we're in. Is it sphere? Because like they're always asking me anyways what the market's at. So that's just like what I live and breathe. So like it just organically happens. It always comes up no matter what, right? Every single time I get asked about real estate somehow.
People want to know. Yeah. It's so funny to me how we think this way, but like, wouldn't you want to track your stock? You can see your stock going up. My wife logs into that every single day, right? And sellers want to know the equity in their home. Like I want to know it, personally. So like we always hide these conversations, but they're so organic if you really think about it, because you yourself would want to know, and track your net worth through your property. It's just a no-brainer, easy conversation.
I love that. I'm thinking to myself, like tactic-wise, the easy way to get from life to work is to ask people about how their work has been going, because you're asking them how their kids are, you're asking them how life's been, and then you ask them how their work's been going. They will naturally then ask you. And then I think scripting wise, you want to be authentic, but scripting wise, the idea of saying, oh man, the market's super interesting right now. In fact, the thing that shocks me the most is our market's gone up 11% in the last year. I'm having so many conversations, people don't even realize how much equity they have in their home. Some people are sitting on $30,000 more than they even realize. And then that naturally makes what you're saying.
The problem people have is they're not educating themselves, right? They're not learning based. They're not actually digging into they're not making it a career. They're making it a job.
You're talking about agents specifically when you're saying people.
Specifically. So they can't have these conversations because they haven't learned. They're not knowledgeable. It's not authentic because they're not digging in and actually making this a career. They're making it a job, right? And so for me, like the conversation is so easy because, you ask, how's work been going? And then they, organically ask you how's, your work going, and you share it. And if you don't have any data, to give, or if you actually haven't been doing transactions, it's a very
it's tough.
conversation. It's
Yeah.
like you don't have anything to give. And so therefore that's when you try to go into your scripts about, hey, I want to work with people like you. You know what I mean? That's not organic. That's not authentic. And that's just trying to get a transaction. So you really have to be learning based, right? You have to dig into this business and actually make it your career. Stop sitting on the sidelines being half in and half out.
And me and Steven differ on this actually a lot, this fear question, because he's a lot more intentional in this conversation, and I'm more of like a relational, like organically. So it's funny how we differ. Like when we're training, we're like,
I'm relationship oriented.
yes, you are. And a little bit more. But yeah, so that's when we're training agents, we often like, all right, so Steven would actually do it this way, but what I would do is actually just talk about them a lot first and not just go right into it, because that's how I kind of catch up with people anyways. So
they're both authentic.
Yeah, they're both authentic. That's who Steven is, and everyone knows that. And he does a great job.
Steven's just about the money. He's like, get out of my way, close the deal.
That's the relationship.
You're selling a house? Oh, cool. Have a nice day.
I'm out.
No.
Garrett, I'm interested to hear your thought, though, because you're writing a book. What is it called? Scoreboard?
Yeah, the common agent scoreboard.
The common agent scoreboard. So I'm interested to hear, because I know you're a huge relationship guy. I think when we had you on State Page, you had closed like 88 or something deals out of like 286.
86. Yeah, with 200 and something like that.
In your database.
People.
So it's always referrals, relationships. It's just insane. Like, talk a little bit about like why you're writing the book, that whole philosophy of relationships in your mind. I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, honestly, it just started from a place of trying to gain clarity and asking myself the question over and over, who do I want to serve, right? Who do I want to serve? Now, of course, we want to serve buyers and sellers, but it started to go deeper than that, right? For me, my heart, as I looked around in this business, was the number. I've got 4 kiddos, as I said, 6 and under, right? When I looked around and saw the number of agents that were struggling to understand, how do I succeed in a business and succeed at home, and the kids that were missing their parents, the kids that didn't get to see mommy because she's on the phone all the time or always working, whatever, it just kind of started to hit me as like, who do I really want to care for well? And super quick story, it all started, I was in the backyard in my house doing thinking time. I do that a couple times a week and just processing through like, what's going on? What am I doing in my business? And I come to this point where I'd figure out a way, how could I double my income? And I'd figured out a way to do it, but I couldn't figure out how to do it without working an extra 20 hours a week. And so it just was a very honest question. I just said, Garrett, in 5 years from now, who would you be most proud of? The guy that worked even more and made more money, or the guy that figured out a way to make the same amount of money now, but do it in less time so I could spend more time with my kids? And when I asked it that way, I thought, well, that's clearly what I would choose, right? I want to spend time. My kids are little right now. That's the intention for me. Came up to my office. I've got a whiteboard right over here. And I kept asking myself, well, why was I only thinking about transactions and money and those things? Well, I come up and on my whiteboard, the only thing written down was number of transactions, GCI, and profit. That was all that I was measuring, right? So of course, every single action I was taking was about that. Now, I'm the guy that will always say, oh, it's my family first, right? That's of course what matters to me most. But all I was measuring and whether I was succeeding was exactly what the industry has told me to do, right? How many deals did you do? How much GCI? How much profit? And so when I started to recognize, hold on, I'm literally playing based on a scoreboard that the industry gave me. I'm not choosing my own measure of success. That's honestly when everything changed for me. It was that light bulb moment. And so it doesn't mean that I don't still have a goal for a financial goal, right? That's still very important. You still need to run your business. You should be tracking those numbers. Don't get me wrong. But it meant for me, that was my number 1 on the scoreboard of 3. Here's my financial goal. Number 2, take every 7th week off, right? That's my family goal. So I can spend time with them. And number 3 was 2 day dates a month with my wife, right in the middle of the day, show her that she is more valuable than work. Now that's not you can't just take day dates and all of a sudden you're a great husband. I don't mean that, but I wanted to figure out a way. How do I measure these things? And then when I look at it, which I look at it every single day, it's right there. When I look at it, now I can make decisions based off who do I want to be, right? And how do I want to serve the people in my life? So for example, when I was growing out a big team, that's what I was doing at the time when I figured that out. When I was growing out a big team, which is awesome. If that's somebody's heart, you should go do that, right? But when I was growing out a big team, when I changed my scoreboard and I started to think, all right, well, does this score anymore? Can it help me get my financial goal? Yes, it can. Can I still take every 7th week off? I don't know that I could in the short term, right? Can I still do 2-day dates with my wife? Well, maybe not, right? So now it doesn't score anymore. Okay, so that can't be it. Now I've got to go find ways that I can actually score on the scoreboard that I say is important. So, I think so much of what's going on in the market, my heart and my hope is that it is allowing these agents, I'll tell you a quick story of somebody, but it is allowing agents to say, okay, let's be realistic, right? Is life just about more deals, more money, more stuff, right? Because the industry is prone to say, hey, you did 50 deals last year. Good job. How many are you going to do next year? And everyone's answer is more, right? That's the only answer that we're ever willing to give. I'm not saying that's the wrong answer, but for some people it is. I was teaching this and a lady comes up to me after, I don't know, a year ago. A lady comes up to me afterwards and she says, Garrett, I sold 55 homes last year. And she's introduced herself as a mom and a solo agent. Garrett, I did 55 homes last year, best year ever. Everyone's been asking me, how many am I going to do this year? So I'm telling them 60 or 70. And she said, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? It's just more and more and more. And she said, but Garrett, hearing you talk about the scoreboard, I realized I'm going to intentionally do 30 homes this year and it's going to change my life. And I said, well, what do you mean? I'm not advocating for doing less business, right? Necessarily. That's not my point. But she said, Garrett, because here's the truth. I've been in the industry a long time, but I got in the industry because I wanted to pick up my daughter from school every day. And I am sad to say I haven't done that once. Why? I've been so busy selling homes. So I'm going to intentionally do less and do what I really wanted to do, which is pick up my daughter, right? So I think in the busyness of this business, the busyness of this career, we tend to lose sight of the really important things that we're actually striving for. Why did I get into real estate? To make a better life for my family, right? Why did I get into real estate? To have more freedom of my time so I could go do these things with my kids. Well, what happens really quickly? I'm so busy. I'm sorry, babe. I'm going to be gone again all Saturday because I got to show houses. I'm not saying there's not a season for that. What I am saying is when we just think about what the industry scoreboard is, we tend to put everything else on the back burner. And now we're not scoring in the most important way. So, that a very brief overview, but that's really the heart of where this is. And I just desire for agents to, and myself too, to properly posture our business, right? In the whole scheme, in the whole picture of what our life looks like. So that's really the heart behind this common agent scoreboard idea.
Yeah, and I swear, if you're more intentional with your wife, you're going to gain back more time. So you give her, the intentionality, and you actually win more time in real estate, which is the crazy part. Like if you're not taking vacations, you're not going to be who you want to be. Therefore, that's going to bleed into your business, and then you're not going to have the confidence, you're not going to have the joy, the fun of it.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's going to bleed over to your confidence or your conversations with your clients. It's just so funny to me. So good.
Yeah. I mean, so you guys talked about this earlier. Maybe it was some Hormozi had said it, but in 200 years, will anybody care or whatever the comment was? And I actually, in my book, in my talk, I write about this. So last December, I'm standing at the graveside. My grandmother passed away, and I'm looking. She's buried next to my grandfather, who I knew. Next to him was his dad, right? My great grandfather. Had no idea who he was, and I remember reading his name and the dates, right? 1800-1900 something. And I remember just thinking through, I didn't have any emotional response. It's not because I don't care, right? I'm not trying to be morbid. I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know how he spent his time. Was he a successful businessman? Did he fight in World War I? I didn't know those things about him. Or did he spend his time chasing money and cars and fame and whatever? Or did he invest in his son and his wife and his kids, whatever it was? Like, did he do the eternal, not temporal things? Is that how he spent his time? And so when I started to process through that, I just thought, man, so much of what I try to do, right? This ties into the anxiety thing, that so much of what I try to do is like, through, I was like, man, that dash is my life, right? That's it. That's what I'm going to end up as. Again, not morbid. All of us will end up like that one day. Yep. You'll be a name, you'll be dates, and there'll be a dash. And the dash is the representation of your entire life. So the question is, we get to choose, how am I going to spin that dash? right? And for me, it is, yes, I want to succeed in business. I want to show people how to be excellent at work, excellent at home. And for me, as a follower of Jesus, passionate disciple makers of Christ, that's my heart. That's my mission in business, right? I have to first do that in my home. So what do I care most about? Yes, providing for my family financially. I need to do that. I have to do that. But it's providing for my kids by showing up. By when my 5-year-old says, Daddy, can you play with me for 10 minutes in Legos? And instead of like, no, I got all these meetings, which sometimes I have to say no. It's, of course, buddy, let's do that, right? It's the investment into life. My dash is going to go quickly, and so is theirs. And so when I started to, and I'm still unpacking this, man, but as I started to unpack that, it is this proper posturing of where my business fits and understanding I didn't go into this industry just to make millions and millions of dollars. That was not my intent. It was to make certainly a lot more than I was making, right? I was in higher ed, certainly make a lot more than that, but also the freedom to invest myself and my time where I wanted it to go. And I'm afraid that a lot of us have lost sight of that. And so that's really the hope, is to bring us back to that, man. I mean, that's really where my heart is.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Well, one is I think maybe you're called to be a preacher. I don't know. That's what I
There's a song
Yeah.
with that. It's not the dates on your tombstone, it's the dash in between. Are you familiar with that, Chris?
No.
Chris Stapleton? No,
it's not Stapleton.
Stapleton.
I can't remember the last guy's name, but I'll have to send you that
Great.
song.
Send it to
It's
me.
called TikTok. Yeah,
But I mean, it's insanely spot on. It's very powerful. Again, it comes back to that comment that we said earlier that plays into your content. It plays into your sales pitch. It's like once you're good with you, which means you know what you want to accomplish out of your life, that it's more important. You don't care if you make 80K versus 100K. If 80K allows you to play Legos with your son, why do you need the extra?
I'll take the Legos in the 80.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. So it's like knowing yourself, knowing what you want out of life. Now, the conflict always in my mind is, and I haven't figured out, like, my life mantra that I want to have is like, I want to have it all in my faith, in my family, in my friendships, in my fitness, and in my finance. I call it like the 5 Fs. Like, I want to have it all in those things. And I'm a believer that, you can have it all. But the truth is, and the reality of life is, you can't have it all, right? Because if you want to have it really in your finance, hey man, it's taken a lot of sacrifice to get to where I've gotten to, and a lot of long hours. And anybody who has been successful monetarily, I haven't met somebody who's done the 4-hour work week like Tim Harris. I haven't, or Tim Ferriss. Is it Ferriss? Yeah, Ferriss. Haven't met anybody like that. So it's like, if you want to have the income, then you got to have the sacrifice. That's been my road. So it's like the same of like, you're going to have to give up something. What do you want to sacrifice? And that balance in play, I don't know. There's no real magic answer to it. But, just shouting that out, going like, hey, if you want to be there for your kids playing Legos, you're probably not going to have, name it, what the other thing. Maybe it's the gym, not being able to go to the gym or not being able to go. You're going to have to sacrifice something. What's your feel on that, guys?
Yeah, goals. Yeah, I mean, that's what we obviously use as drivers with agents and for ourselves. It's like, what is my end goal? Then that's the number one common thing we see in what's the difference between a really successful realtor and someone that's not. And the number one thing is drive. And so when we talk about drive, I then go, all right, what's the 1 year, 5 year goal, yada, yada. So what are those goals that are driving you? So Garrett, you're going back to like your driver of like, why did I start this to begin with anyways, right? What is my main driver goal? And then have I done that to get to where I want? And I think for other people, it's like, I'm not here. So then Luke, to your point, sacrifices need to be made to get to the goal I want at the end. But at the end of the day, what is that reason? What's my reason?
Yeah.
What's the reason, the goal?
And the tough part in this industry is like there's a family on the other side. And this is what I deal with, like the debate in my mind all the time. It's like, babe, I got to answer this phone call because there's someone just like you on the other end of the line that's worried, stressed, right? All this good stuff. And this is just going to be a 5-minute phone call. You know what I mean? So like, the conversations that happen around our family is that it's like, hey, I do need to serve this family, you know what I mean? And I need to treat them well. And obviously if that's not taking away from serving your wife well, then I think you do it, right? But that's the sacrifice that you have to make. That's kind of my advice.
I found like the internal scripting I have on like, okay, how much do you give to your business and success versus your family and the scoreboard and all that stuff is, I've told myself internally, it's like, look, at the end of the day, there's no perfect amount of time. I mean, nobody knows the magic formula of how many hours you need to spend with your kids, what you need to do with them, what you don't need to do with them. I've heard a bunch of different things. I've read some stuff on it because I'm a dad and want to make sure I'm a good dad. But I do know that, look, what people want is they want your attention. They want to know that you care. And I find the biggest mistake I see in entrepreneurs and business people is they do not include their significant other, the people that mean something to them. They do not include them in their goals. You talked about me starting to coach Noah, an agent on your team. The first thing I asked them is, what are your goals? Then I asked them, does Tori, your wife, know your goal? Is she a part of it? Like, has she created that goal with you? Because if not, you're going to immediately ostracize and basically create a problem for yourself down the road because she's not involved. And it doesn't. But a key point I'm trying to make here is that you're not changing your goal and who you want to be, based upon, I got to go now do this with Tori. You're including them in the process, which is the key. It's like Megan knows what I'm trying to accomplish, and I'm including her into that she can play a part in it, and I can play a part in her goals, which at the end of the day, now she knows why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so the same with my kids. It's like, I'm going to tell my kids, yeah, I work hard. Yeah, I work 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, and be that example. But I want them to be a part of that. Hey, work with me in this. Come to the office with me. Do it. Because I think what will happen, I'm not sure, will be an experiment 20 years from now. We'll see how the kids turn out. But I think
it's a long experiment.
Yeah, I think what will happen is it will be the kids won't remember exactly what you did or didn't do in the sense of like the actual activity, but they'll remember the time and the involvement that you gave them. And that's kind of my philosophy on it. It's like, I'm just going to be intentional about including them in what I'm trying to accomplish and let, the results kind of speak for themselves at that point.
Yeah. You're totally right. Really quick. You're totally right. There's no formula, right? So if anybody tries to tell you a formula, that they're wrong. I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to be for you, but I often say on our podcast, if your ambition at work keeps you from being ambitious at home, you've got something wrong.
That's a great
right?
saying.
And because like you should be ambitious at work. Absolutely. That's how you're made. You're an entrepreneur. But if it's taking everything out of you, so you show up and you've got nothing left to be ambitious at home, you're doing something wrong, right?
Agreed.
You've got to figure out. And one thing that I've used recently is what I call the hierarchy of attention. And this has been a game changer for me. So the hierarchy of attention, literally drawing out who gets the most attention from me, right? So for me, it's the Lord, it's my wife, it's my kids, then it's my real estate team, then it's the faithful agent, right? And so we tend to get that jacked up where it's like, well, any of my clients can call and they're going to jump up to the top always and ever. I can give equal attention to everyone, right? I'll just give everybody all my attention all the time. Like you said earlier, Luke, that's just not true. That's not even possible. So the hierarchy of attention has allowed me, now I'm still struggle with it, man, but has allowed me to really understand, all right, are they getting enough attention? Like you said, time and attention are different things. Yes, I'd love to spend all day with my kids, but I can't provide for them that way. So that would be a terrible decision. But from an attention perspective, are they getting attention? The attention that they deserve, right? Because my wife is not going to go get another me. My kids aren't going to can't go get another dad.
Garrett, with AI,
right?
they are going to be able to get another you, bro.
Yeah.
With AI. I hate to tell you that.
True.
I hate to tell you, but no.
I think the AI genius level would not work for me because I'm too simple.
Yeah. But your point is exactly right. Like that is what people connect with. And so, I mean, I feel like we could talk on this topic all day. I know we have some audience questions that have been asked.
You want to go for it?
Yeah, let's go for the Q&A.
Want to go straight to the
audience
Q&A?
questions, and then I want to come back to Garrett so he can tell people how to find out about the faithful agent and the scoreboard.
Okay, so listener Q&A, here we go. We got this from Stephanie Love. She asks, what strategies can you suggest for new agents to build trust? So, Steven, I know you get a rotation of new agents on your team. What are you coaching?
You can't keep them. So
that wasn't a dig. That was like, you're always recruiting. What's going on?
Yeah. What advice do you have to a new agent to help them build trust?
One of the sayings we have is show, don't tell. And it's so good because I think we Grant Cardone says, get on other people's stages, right? And even the green screen we were talking about before, that's really getting on other people's stages because you are reading an article, right, of someone else that's given authority to the business. And so you don't necessarily you don't have to know everything, like Gary Keller says. You just have to know that you're going to be the one to go get the answer. And I think that like if people came and they showed factual information, right, rather than just saying all this fluff that's out there like an influencer would, I think they would gain so much more trust. And so I would say like it really is about being learning based and digging into the industry and going out and getting factual information and providing that factual information in a way that they can see it, not that you're just saying it, right? Because a lot of us don't have experience in this industry. A lot of us are just jumping in. There's a lot of new agents in this business. And so you need to show, not just tell people, because people aren't just going to have trust in you. They need to have trust in actual factual information. So I would say that would be the best way to do it.
Yeah. And I would add to that is like get a mentor to start a new agent and build trust. You should have a mentor, coach, or a great team, right? That you can, lean on and use their examples, use their experience to then talking to, because real estate's it's funny because most are out in 2 years, 80%, but it takes experience to be really good. Yeah. If you don't have that as a new agent, how can I build trust or knowledge? Obviously articles, reporting, but mentors, leadership to then preach into you so then you can use it to go build trust with your friends.
Yeah, it's great.
And trust is built through care, right? Ask a lot of questions. That's the best way to build trust, in my opinion. It's like, man, it's great to meet you. Tell me about you guys. How'd you guys meet, right? Whatever. Like, you can't influence someone unless you've first been influenced by them. You get influenced by them when you ask questions and they share things. And you're like, oh, that's super interesting. I didn't know that or whatever. So I think I love what you guys are saying. I agree wholeheartedly. You got to know what you're talking about. But I also think the easiest thing is just be curious. If you're just curious and you ask questions, they'll trust you because they start to tell you things. I think that's the
way. Related to real estate. I think that's going off of what you're saying, Garrett. It's just like, if you have conversations with people that are real life conversations where they actually know you're a human being, there's a lot more trust that can be built. Because if it's just purely a real estate, every time I feel the tension when I'm in an appointment, when I'm just talking about listing price and how we're going to market and stuff, I immediately know to pull off and start talking about other things related to their lives and what they're trying to accomplish. So don't make it all about real estate. Yeah,
it's really, really good.
Awesome. Did you want to go over, Garrett? Did you have anything to go over with your conference coming up?
I didn't know if you had any other Q&A questions. That's why I was waiting. I was like, okay, no, just one question. Okay, good, awesome.
I got nothing.
All right, so Garrett, tell the audience just so they can know, Faithful Agent and then the Scoreboard book. When is that going to come out? Can't wait to read it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So yeah, we've got a community for Christians in real estate. We want to help you grow your business, grow your faith. Just go to my Instagram, Garrett Maroon, GarrettMaroon. You can get all the links and stuff there. And then the book right now is being shopped with publishers. So if you're a publisher, or you know a publisher, my literary agent is working on that. Would love to connect with you too and get it out. Like, I just genuinely wanted to impact lives because it's impacted my life. So grateful for you guys and the ability to come and share some of that with y'all today.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Thank you. Steven, you got anything for us?
No.
When's your book coming out?
When's your book coming out?
What's your book?
Are Steven's biceps bigger than Hormozi's? That's the question.
That is the question.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
He leans forward to flex.
No, they're fine. No. All right, man. Thank you all so much for listening. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show. To dive deeper into this episode, get the show notes and the video, you can go to staypaidpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a 5-star review. We just saw Spotify outpaced our unique listeners. So we have more unique listeners on Spotify now after
than Apple.
Apple like dominating for
5 years.
Yeah, Spotify. So thank you so much. You can rate the show there, and then we always put up like a question. Right, Ethan, we're still doing the questions and
we're collecting questions now from people on Spotify. So send in your questions if you want to ask us questions, whether it's about real estate, business in general, leadership, hiring, firing people, just chat in whatever your question is. We'll answer it on the show.
Speaking of real estate, does anyone know how much a chimney costs? Nothing. It's on the house.
I respect that.
I like having Cody. He thinks my jokes are funny.
That was an authentic laugh too. I give him the fake laugh.
Luke gives me pity laughs. There you go. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@reminderme.com. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram. We're at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Action item from this. I think you can take away that, look, Alex Hormozi is shifting to more authentic content. This whole podcast kind of revolved around this idea of knowing who you are, knowing your identity, knowing your scoreboard. I think the action item is go look at your scoreboard right now, like Garrett challenged you to do. And what's the scoreboard? What are you living for? What are you working for? And are you measuring the right things, or did you just fit into what the industry tells you to do? Because when you get that right, you actually bring happiness back into your life, and you'll get more focus, which will help you be more effective in your business. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every single industry. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.